Okay, I'll just get it out of the way. There's a picture of a naked woman in this movie. Disney is full of pervs. There, done. Now let's talk about the movie. The Rescuers. Sort of along the same veins of the Aristocats or 101 Dalmatians in that there's not much magic, not much stellar animation, and mostly just cutesy animals looking, well, cutesy. Though I don't think it's as bad as something as the Aristocats, there is a little bit more story and character to it. Nothing much really stands out about it. It centers around a little girl who's being held by this evil woman who wants her to go inside this mine and get this incredibly valuable diamond. Talk about child labor laws. Well, it turns out there's a big group of mice called the Rescued Aid Society that go in and try to help people in such circumstances. Definitely a creative idea, I guess, though I guess, like most people in the movie, I wonder what the heck a bunch of mice can do in rescuing a bunch of people. But I guess that's the point of the film. There's no person too small, yada yada yada. So two mice named Bernard and Miss Bianca go out to rescue her while also coming across a bunch of colorful characters. I guess I remember a few things that stood out, like some of the bad guys actually are entertaining. Like this crazy lady who's holding the girl looks like something out of a 1940s French bordello. A really bad 1940s French bordello. Her reactions a lot of the time are pretty fun to watch. She also has this blithering sidekick who once in a while gets a good line, and she also has these two alligators that are probably one of the funniest things in the movie. But aside from that, it's just more cutesiness. The little girl is obnoxious. I can't stand her. She's like one of the Olsen twins. She's just designed to look precious.
Rudit! You! Did you let that little brat escape again? You're too soft.
And most of the movie is just filled with other scenes that drag or overly cutesy or don't really seem to have much point to them. I don't hate it, I just don't remember it doing very much for me. Even as a kid, I sort of remember being bored by it. Again, with the exception of one or two comedic scenes. Not really a fan. I'd probably say there's much better Disney movies you can watch.
Tomorrow is another day.
And what was up with that naked lady? Pete's Dragon. This is a movie I so desperately want to like, because there is obviously so much effort put into it, and there are some great songs, and there are some great effects, but oh, it's just so corny. To me, it's kind of like a more restrained Babes in Toyland. There's some really cool stuff, but God, it's just all over the place and so cheesy. But isn't that kind of what you expect from Disney? Alright, let's look at the story. A boy named Pete is running away from home because he lives with a terrible family of rednecks. So he comes across a town called Passamaquoddy and tries to see if he can fit in and find a new family. The trouble? Pete has a pet dragon that can turn invisible whenever he wants. Of course, being Disney, the dragon is animated, but that still doesn't stop for some scenes still building a live-action version, like when he's covered in a net. That's actually pretty impressive. He does come across a kind woman and her father who are looking to take him in, but his pet dragon keeps getting him into more and more trouble, and the more he has to keep invisible, the more the mother is afraid that, well, the dragon doesn't exist. But one person who does think he exists is our villain, and his bumbling sidekick. They want to capture the dragon and chop him up into a million pieces because apparently every part of a dragon can be used as some sort of tonic. There's even a song about it.
Dragon cartilage keeps you thin. Dragon fat is for burns. A dragon tear will clear up your skin.
The number one problem is that unlike films like Ben Knobs and Broomsticks or Mary Poppins, where they never quite wink too much to the camera or never fully let in how cheesy it all is, this kinda does. It's hard to say. Everyone just seems a bit too over the top. Even the kid that's supposed to be sort of the normal nice kid is a little too over the top normal nice. There's nothing much to him. The only characters that really seem to find that right balance, even though they are still over the top, is the mother, who seems to have a fun but tough attitude about her, and the villain, who of course is such a cliche with the top hat and the big mustache, but oh, it just looks like he's having so much fun. It's hard not to kind of laugh with him. I guess you could argue sort of the over-the-top take on it is part of the charm, but I don't know, for me, it's just a little too silly. Which is not to say there isn't a lot of stuff to admire. Like I said, the animation on the actual dragon is really good. It does lead to a lot of really good effects when they have to make him invisible. The songs are a lot of fun, again, most of them coming from the villain. And like I said, I do enjoy the villain himself and the mother character. but I think the story is just a little too all over the place. Again, kinda like Babes in Toyland. And the main character is so dull, and you just don't care what happens to him. And even the songs, as good as they are, don't keep that much focus. I mean, there's a scene where the father sees the dragon and he goes in and he starts singing about it, and it just goes on forever. It leads into this gigantic musical number just about how nobody believes him, and it's just like, yeah, it's cool, but why are we singing this about whether or not they saw a dragon? It's like, where did this come from? Why should we be invested in it? In fact, are you even singing about the dragon anymore? It's in your face and not the least bit subtle, and I guess I would understand if that did find an audience. And it did. The movie did well, and I still know there's people that watch it even today. I'd be lying if I said I didn't watch it a few times for the elements I listed before, but anything else I watch it for is more just for kind of mockery of it. I mean, that redneck family is so silly, and these song sequences are so goofy. And everything is just so played up and not subtle that, I don't know, I guess there's sort of something fun about that, but I don't think it makes for technically a well put together film, but rather a giant mess that has some good elements to it. As a whole, I think it's just too overblown. Take it for what's worth and see for yourself. The Black Hole is one of those movies I always heard a lot of people talk about, but not usually very favorably. And after having finally seen it, I can definitely see why. It's Disney's attempt at trying to beat every popular sci-fi film that's ever come out. In fact, you can point practically scene by scene what movie they're trying to replicate. First it's Alien, then it's Battlestar Galactica, then it's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, then it's Star Wars, and then finally it's 2001: A Space Odyssey. In trying to combine them all together, you get a film that has very little identity. It's just kind of a huge mess. But at the same time, I can't say it was entirely bad. There's some good things about it. A couple, maybe. It starts off with an expedition in space where they come across a craft that apparently has been lost for years. A scientist and his robot standing on the edge of the black hole. He claims the rest of the crew died, yeah, that's it, and that he's been spending his time trying to figure out how he can go through the black hole and come out the other end. He thinks he's finally found a way, and everybody's intrigued to see if he can actually do it. The downside is there's a lot of mysterious things going on. His robot crew almost seems a little too human, and there's just this all-around threatening tone where the people feel more like prisoners than they do guests. Secrets are discovered, sides are declared, and it's a battle to see who can get off the ship alive. The best part about the movie, strangely enough, is its atmosphere. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the effects are not very good. They're supposed to be flying around in space, but it just kind of looks like they're standing around. And the keying is really, really bad. I mean, look at that. Can you take a guess where the real film is and where the matte painting begins? Yeah, it's pretty painful. But it almost makes up for it with this gigantic feeling of dread throughout the first half. Everybody knows something sneaky is going on, but they can't quite put their finger on what it is. They're just waiting for a trigger moment to whip out their guns and start defending themselves, but there never really seems to be a reason to. Plus, it has maybe one of the scariest robots of all time. Maximilian. Yeah, doesn't sound very scary, but whenever he's on screen, all the music stops, all the sound goes dead, and you just feel this thing's presence. He even gets in a few decent kills every once in a while. Look at this scene. Jesus Christ! For Disney, that's pretty gruesome. For such a simple design, I love how uncomfortable I feel whenever he's on screen. He doesn't even say anything, it's just, I don't know, it's just this presence they create. Aside from that, the evil scientist is pretty good, Ernest Borgnine adds a little bit of comedy, but all the other actors are under this really weird, stoic way of acting, and it just comes across as so wooden. Even great actors like Roddy McDowall and Anthony Perkins. You can sense they're trying to get a good performance out of this, but there's just so little to work with. There's a lot of elements they throw in that don't really seem to go anywhere either. For example, this woman's telepathic. It's useless. There's totally no point to it at all. She communicates with the robot at some point, but what, they don't have communicators? Walkie-talkies, cell phones, none of that is created in the future? The ending itself is just a huge clusterfuck. It mixes in images of heaven and hell and yeah, I don't know why, I don't know what it's trying to say, but it's not quite like 2001 where the vagueness is part of the intrigue. It's more like we're obviously trying to say something, you just can't figure out what it is. And based on the rest of the film, you can tell that whatever it had to say probably wasn't that intelligent or interesting. Look at this incredibly fake asteroid field is going by and one even crashes into the ship. Why the hell is it going that slowly? They're whizzing by at incredible speeds before and now it's given time for the characters to cross a bridge right in front of it? It's like a school crossing, it just looks ridiculous. But I do give credit to the film that it was at least trying to be a little smarter than your average sci-fi film. Yeah, Star Wars in 2001 were big hits and everybody was trying to copy them, and so is this film. But a lot of it's very dialogue focused. Not much action, not much running around. I guess I kinda like the fact that it at least made an attempt to be smarter. It just didn't seem to pay off. So yeah, I guess like what a lot of people say, it's not a very good film. Even by the so bad it's good standards, it's still not very good. But I am glad I saw a few of those scenes that created some pretty decent atmosphere, even if it was really fake looking. Definitely not one of Disney's best, and you can probably just give it a pass. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, we had a lot of various specials that always acted like they were gonna scare us. We had Tales from the Crypt, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Goosebumps, all sorts of various shows that kept explaining how they were gonna scare the crap out of us. And don't get me wrong, I like these shows, I think they're really creative, but there's always one problem to me. They were never scary. Even when I was a kid, I was saying to myself, where's the scary stuff? Where's the stuff that's gonna fuel my nightmares? Where's the stuff that's gonna keep me up? Watcher in the Woods is that movie. Yes, it's Disney, and yes, it's technically family-friendly, but it works like any great scary horror film. A lot of atmosphere, a lot of build-up, a lot of mystery, a lot of great shots, and a lot of creepy as well as clever imagery. The story is a family is looking in Britain for a new house to move into. They of course find a big, creepy place that of course has this terrible backstory, an uncomfortable landlord, and all sorts of supernatural things happening around it. Both the daughters in the family seem to have strange things happening to them. The youngest is almost being taken over like a puppet, and the older has a tendency to feel the presence of people that were once there before or just feel all sorts of uncomfortable things. Slowly but surely, the truth about the disappearance of a certain girl named Karen comes to light, and the daughters are trying to figure out if it's the ghost of Karen that's trying to get in contact with them, or something else. What I like about this film is that there's very few things that actually separate it from a kid's scary film and a regular scary film. In fact, I think this film has a lot more atmosphere and scares than most scary films. The only difference is there's no gore, murdering, or swear words in it, as well as the pacing is a little quicker than that of a usual scary movie, but again, they want to keep the kids' attention. But apart from that, they treat it pretty adult. Notice how many quiet moments are in this. Yeah, remember that? You could have family films that had quiet moments. There didn't always need to be a ton of music or talking. This is called establishing mood, and it's done great here. The shots are also great. I absolutely love how they make these woods both beautiful and creepy at the same time. The cinematography surprisingly kind of has an Evil Dead feel to it. Obviously not as over the top, but just as clever with its setups. My favorite shot is right in the opening. It's just a car pulling into the place. Well, that's no biggie. Oh, well, that shot was kind of sloppily done. Wait a minute, why are we still rolling? Oh my god, this is a point of view shot. What's watching them? What's going on? Okay, it's not a big scare, but at the same time, it kind of catches you off your guard. It's setting up something you didn't know was being set up, and that's what a good scary film should do. The funny thing too is that there's a lot of point of view shots in this film, but just when you're about to get sick of them, they do something new with it. For example, here's a shot of her just going through the woods. Yeah, something's watching her, we've seen that a million times. But then at some point she goes inside and, wait a minute, it's still out there. Why would they show this shot if something wasn't gonna happen? And it does, and it was properly built up and properly delivered. And just when you think a shot like that can't make you uncomfortable again, there's another scene where she's being followed. Well, okay, again, we've seen that a million times. But wait a minute, now it's inside? We didn't know it could go inside. Every time we've seen it, it's always been outside. Every time they do something with a point of view shot, they add something new to put you in a new state of uncomfortableness. It doesn't downplay anything because it's also gonna be shown to kids. No, it wants to scare the kids because that's why you're seeing a scary movie. I always hated when those other shows had to clean it up and not make it too creepy. This goes all out there and tries to scare you without actually psychologically harming you. Kids can be drawn into smart things, and scary films can be smart. The only downside I have of this film is that the acting from the main character is not very good. It's really hokey and awkward and kind of reminds me of the girlfriend from Airplane.
But I did see something in the mist at the pond. That's why I fell in.
But even then, I don't mind too much because the whole film has such a strange feel to it that even the acting in its weirdness actually kind of blends in. The whole film's style is so uniquely its own that you kind of get used to it, and maybe it kind of adds to the weird feeling that you have throughout the entire movie. I don't want to give away too much, as part of the fun is being scared and surprised by it, but I will say it's very well done. I kind of don't know why more people aren't talking about it. I mean, it's a legit scary film from Disney. How often does that happen? I mean, we got scary moments from other films that scare us because we're kids, and yeah, some of them go really far, but this is actually intending throughout the majority of the film to scare you, and it's actually effective. Are scary movie fans just put off that the Disney logo is in front of it? Are Disney fans put off that it's a little too dark and not as obvious for kids? I don't know, but it definitely deserves a lot more attention. Okay, I don't think it's gonna send anyone out running and screaming, but at the same time, it just creates this mood and this environment that just feels strange and dark and creepy and I don't know. Personally, I just love it. I wish more scary films aimed at kids tried this hard. I don't know if it's a censorship issue or if people are just too afraid to push the limit, but there's gotta be more movies like this. I can tell you for certain I found a new film to watch every Halloween. The atmosphere, the environment, the story, the characters, the scares. I'm just in love with this film. It's definitely worth checking out with the lights off when you're all alone and you feel like somebody's watching you.